From Lip Gallagher and Shameless to the jacked wrestler and Iron Claw, Jeremy Allen White supposedly packed on 40 pounds of muscle, and this week he bared it all in his new Calvin Klein ad, which the world is swooning over. But did he do it all through diet and exercise, or did he have some help from steroids? Well, over the years I've done almost every steroid there is, and I've coached thousands of guys with their own personal use. I've coached top celebrities and top influencers. Some of them are open with their use and some of them aren't. Some of them are fake natties and some of them are actual natties. So I think I have a pretty unique expertise here. So let's take that expertise and figure out what cycle, if any, Jeremy Allen White used for his role in Iron Claw and this Calvin Klein physique. So this is the physique that everybody is swooning over or freaking out about. This went viral, it was trending the other day. I figured I had to comment on it. First and foremost, is this a physique that would require steroids? Looking at it, absolutely not. That being said, if I was a celebrity and I needed to get in this shape immediately, or if a celebrity came to me and wanted to get in this shape and asked for a cycle, I'd give them one, and I'll talk about that later. First, let's just talk about this physique and kind of why I think that it could definitely be natural. I mean, first, looking here, it looks like he just has a kind of normal physiologic baseline muscle mass. He looks pretty cut. I mean, very, very cut. That's the main thing he is here. He's lean. And people always kind of conflate leanness with jacked big muscle. I'm going to tell you right now, this is absolutely, like a pitiful physique when it comes to the bodybuilding and fitness world. If you're a Gen Pop person, you're probably thinking that this is some miraculous, godlike, unobtainable physique, but I'll tell you that all of us would literally look at this and just kind of laugh and wonder if the guy ever did anything more than push-ups. Most men who aren't just lazy pieces of shit will have some baseline muscle underneath fat, and when you get lean enough, you can see a physique like this, very reminiscent of the Brad Pitt and Fight Club physique, which doesn't have a lot of muscle, honestly. It's just a very lean, emaciated physique. But Jeremy here definitely looks genetically gifted. You can see these biceps are pretty decent, his delts look okay, his chest is pretty decent as well, not much back, triceps look okay, legs are absolutely pitiful and virtually absent. Let's look at some other pictures here. I mean, we've got this one just laying. This is like the best ab shot that you can get. You've got down light coming from behind and down. I've definitely done this one in the past from laying on the couch checking out my abs. It's a great one for abs, and it looks sexy and it's provocative, gets people going. You see a little bit of dick shadow there. But yeah, this physique doesn't look too crazy. Again, really good biceps. He has really good insertions, like these can get really big. You can see some lateral head tricep popping out here, so good physique. Again, not anything too impressive. Let's look at this one where angles aren't as flattering. Yeah, this I would say, almost hardly any chest development, upper chest, so probably, again, this is likely push-ups. Delts are okay, certainly not capped. Traps are not massive by any means. We don't see any lats sticking out. We can see his cephalic vein, so he looks pretty damn lean. He's got his obliques all here in the insertions. Everything looks really good from a leanness standpoint. This physique basically comes from Iron Claw, where he and Zac Efron and a few other guys packed on a ton of mass. Supposedly, Jeremy Allen White packed on 40 pounds of muscle. Let's check out this article here. And I really wanted to kind of showcase this, because again, here's his transformation. He looks kind of skinny, and then he looks jacked, well, jacked arms, again, very pathetic small legs. And I'm always confused by this. Why do people put before and after with the after on the, or the before on the right? It's one of my pet peeves. I see people do it on Instagram. I'm like, what the hell, dude? It's before and after, not after and before. Anyways, tangent aside, he says it was gross. Inside Jeremy Allen's epic transformation for the Iron Claw, Hollywood star piling on 40 pounds of muscle. 40 pounds of muscle, I highly doubt if he did actually put on 40 pounds of muscle, that is where anabolics would likely come in. But I don't really know about this whole 40 pounds thing. Let's look at this article a little bit more. So there's him being nice and skinny, I think. I mean, maybe. But I wouldn't be surprised if he could hide this physique under the suit, which again goes to show that he is not very big, because anybody who's actually big can't wear a suit without just looking like a box. Again, here he is, jacked biceps. Traps actually look a little bit better here, and if this was him on the set of Iron Claw, maybe he was running a little something to get a little bit more jacked, and traps and delts are usually indicative of that. Let's read about what he said here. Him pumping up, doing some bicep curls, it looks like. Then here's him with the boys. See, Zac Efron definitely looks much more jacked than usual. And then here's Jeremy here. His bicep and his tricep and delt are looking pretty jacked. I mean, all of them look pretty damn decent. Let's read about this. He hated every second of it. And this is something that I really wanted to, again, hone in on. He said eating all the time, like never stopping. In the morning, I'd have waffles, almond butter. He probably had more than that. That's a pretty pathetic morning. In the middle of the day, I was eating turkey patties and avocado all the time. It's really just gross. You're trying to consume as much as you possibly can, and to be honest, you don't feel great, he added. Well, that's 100% true. Every single day I hear guys tell me, I can't get big, I can't grow muscle, I think I need testosterone. And I ask them, how much are you eating? Oh, I'm eating a lot. How much are you actually eating? Half the time they're not even tracking their food, so how the hell do you know that you're eating a lot? If you're not feeling gross all day long and feeling like shit, you probably aren't eating enough. Let's see if he said anything more about it. I was training as well, but I don't know, trying to get that big, it's no way to live. Yeah, absolutely not. And that's exactly why I stopped it, because it fucking sucks. I just don't like it. You feel like absolute dog shit every single day. You wake up, you eat a shit ton of calories, and then right when your stomach is just like not even done digesting, but it's like 2 hours came out of nowhere and you have to eat a significant amount of calories again. And then 2 hours goes by and you have to eat it again. And you get to the point where you don't even want to look at food, but you have to keep eating. That's what it takes to get big. It doesn't take steroids. It doesn't take some magic diet plan. It takes eating like a fucking monster, and you have to do it. And if you don't, then you don't get big.
You guys all had epic transformations. I hear you gained 40 pounds of muscle. You're shaking your head there. What went into that, from the workouts to the diet?
Yeah, I was eating a lot, like a pretty tremendous amount, just eating as much as I could, and just trying to
eating a tremendous amount, eating as much as you could. That I 100% buy. I'm glad he's at least saying that, because again, I think people just kind of confuse what it takes to get big, and you instantly just think they're on steroids. Well, no, it takes a lot of fucking eating. You can put all the steroids in the world into a body and don't fill it with enough calories, then the person won't grow.
Lift weights, no cardio, which I like to run, like Jeremy likes to run and likes to do jump rope. And
Jeremy likes to run. I think he's talking about himself in the third person. Does that make him a douche? It might. Maybe he's just trying to differentiate Jeremy from the Iron Claw dude, and that makes sense, I guess. We'll give him a pass.
I was just trying to lift heavy things and eat as much as I could, pretty much, yeah.
I mean, full transformation, head to toe.
Yeah.
When you first came out, saw yourself in the mirror.
Lift heavy things and eat as much as you could. That's the fucking formula, guys. But again, we'll get to a steroid cycle for this type of physique. See what else he had to say.
We want to know. Jeremy Allen White gained 40 pounds of muscle to play the role of Kerry Von Erich. Wow. He's a big man, 6'2", 6'3", at his largest, 2 of me, 3 of me, something like that. I tried to keep small.
So he's saying that the actual wrestler who he was playing was significantly bigger than him, and this is definitely true. This is a kind of thing that Hollywood is great at, making people look bigger than they are. See if he kind of elaborates on that.
There are people around me all the time. We all did our best. We all trained very hard. Zach had an entire kind of gym set up outside of his trailer. So we were all exercising all the time, and certainly trying to kind of pump up as much as possible in between takes. And then there's always lighting, which is your friend.
So that was huge. They were getting pumped up. This is something that definitely people should understand, that before every scene when an actor needs to take their shirt off, they're absolutely on set doing probably lateral raises, push-ups, pull-ups, curls, etc., getting as juicy and as pumped as you can so that the muscle bellies all look fuller. These guys don't look like this on a day-to-day basis. I mean, you take your physique even, you're watching, go work out, take your shirt off and see that glorious physique, and then 3 hours later when your pump is diminished, you look like a completely different person. That's the person that they're filming. They're filming that pumped up, jacked, ripped, sweaty, glistening physique with the exact perfect lighting. They have an entire lighting crew to just make sure that the lighting is going to accentuate every muscle belly that it possibly can. So they probably don't look anywhere near this when you just pass them on the street. You could probably pass them and wonder if the guy even works out. So again, they're saying that he packed on 40 pounds of muscle, and I don't know how much of that is true. I also don't think that he had that significant of a transformation, because I looked up some old pictures of him. Remember, this is the guy who played Lip in Shameless. Shameless was a great show, and I actually really liked his character. He was kind of fuck up, but he's a genius, and he was funny. But let's just look at some pictures of Lip from Shameless. So this is him. I mean, this show came out in 2011. This looks like a pretty early part because he looks pretty damn young. So we're talking over 13 years ago, and this guy already has a pretty similar pec. Again, upper pec isn't that big. His lower pecs do look a little bit better now, again, probably doing more push-ups and things, but you can see the outline of those abs, and this is probably, this show did not require him to be lean or jacked in any capacity. He was supposed to be kind of a fuck off. So, I mean, you can see here, delts look good. You can already see his tricep, you can see his bicep, that insertion looks really good. So just from a genetic base, he has a really, really good physique. Again, this is another picture from that same show because I know this was his co-star. This does look like an old picture, like one of those dumbass Instagram filters that we used to have back around then. So the other guy, pretty jacked. I forget this guy's name. He was like, I know he was dating that chick and they had the baby. Anyways, I forget who he was in this show, but look, you can see here that lip or Jeremy. Again, you can see that lateral tricep head just poking out. You can see his ab outline. You can see his pecs look about the same. Traps don't look too crazy, but he has really good arm and like bicep and tricep and shirt insertions and bellies. Fast forward a little bit further, we can see him here, and I see him with a mask. So I'm guessing this is pandemic. So we're talking, probably like 2020. So probably 3 years before shooting. He actually looks pretty freaking jacked right here, and maybe he knew that the role was coming in a few years. I don't know how that works. I'm sure they get pretty extensive timeline where they're told you need to put on some mass. So maybe he was bulking during this area, but the dude looks pretty damn big. These arms are super puffy. You see his chest looks a little bit bigger here, less definition in his abs. Looks like he is out running, but he looks a lot bigger here, and traps are starting to get a little bit more puffy. And then going back a few years, here's another one from that show, Shameless. Shameless. That's a hard set. The show Shameless. Try to say that 10 times fast. Anyways, this is from that show, and again, you can see really freaking lean, like just probably one of those genetic dudes who had abs even when he was like 5 years old. He has really, really good abs. He has really good biceps, really good delts. Chest is a little small, but this is the kind of physique that, like, if you have this baseline and then you do introduce a good amount of proper training with progressive overload, a lot of calories, and a significant amount of drugs, these are the kind of people that can be the top level, because you can just tell this guy responds really well to anything that he does. I'm sure at this point, like, he wasn't hardcore training. You can kind of just see in his physique. He probably did some bicep curls, some pull-ups, some push-ups, some abs like a few times a week. It has that kind of physique, but it responds really, really well. You can tell those are the genetic outliers. And then finally, that brings us to his physique in Iron Claw, and then ultimately the Calvin Klein ad. Like, here's his physique. This is the one that I remember everybody was talking about. Oh, he's so jacked, he's so ripped. I mean, again, yeah, he looks pretty damn good, but if you consider where he was like 10 plus years ago for Shameless, that word is fucking killing me. Anyways, if you consider where he was, he just looks a little bit bigger and a little bit leaner. I highly doubt it was 40 pounds of muscle. I really don't see 40 pounds of muscle packed on anywhere. I would suspect his legs would be a lot bigger if he actually packed on 40 pounds. Looking at this Calvin Klein ad, he doesn't look much bigger. I would say maybe 10 to 15 pounds were packed on. There may have been a time in his peak bulk, like that one picture that we saw with his mass, that he was like 40 pounds heavier from significant amount of glycogen, water retention, fat accumulation. But I think when he actually chiseled down, he may have gained like 5 to 10 pounds max. And that could be indicative of steroid use, potentially. So instead of saying, I don't know, maybe he was natural, maybe he wasn't, we'll never know which is true, let me actually give you a true steroid cycle that I would probably prescribe for a guy like this if he did want to get big. So in that first gaining phase, when he was really gaining, I think first things first, if he was just a natural, I would start just on 250 milligrams of testosterone and get a feel for that. The dude might blow up. Again, I think he may be more of like a hyper responder. He could get a significant amount of mass on 250 to 300 milligrams of testosterone alone. Again, this is considering it's his first cycle. That's probably all he would need. If we wanted to be a little bit more extreme, I may add in an oral, like maybe a Dianabol or an Anadrol, and that's a lot for somebody's first cycle and likely not needed. But if this is a Hollywood celebrity telling me, dude, I need to get fucking jacked, I need to get big ASAP, I'll do whatever. Yeah, we're gonna throw in an oral. And I would probably put that only on workout days. I like to do that like an hour before a workout, mainly so you get that central nervous system activation, increased aggression, increased protein synthesis around the workout. So that's about it. 250, 300 milligrams testosterone, potentially a D-bol or an Anadrol before workout and heavy lifting days. Bulking cycles are nothing big and glorious. You really don't need much. What you need when you're bulking is you need food. Food is the most anabolic steroid you will ever get. So we don't don't need a lot of drugs then. When we need the drugs more, and when drug stacks are usually a little bit bigger and more, elaborate, is when we're cutting, because one, we need to preserve muscle, maybe hopefully even gain a little bit of muscle going into what would normally be the show for the movie. We also need to preserve that muscle while we're losing fat, which is a hard thing to do. Really hard to burn fat and build muscle at the same time, but thankfully there's some drugs that can kind of help with that. Now in the bodybuilding world, we would use something like Tren, because Tren is great at that. It's great for a lot of things, but really its anti-catabolic actions are where it really shines. But for somebody like Jeremy, who doesn't need to look that crazy, because again, we're going to have just pumps and lighting, and the fact that Gen Pop basically thinks that anybody who has visible abs, regardless of muscle size, is so jacked and amazing, I wouldn't risk something like Tren in an actor like him whatsoever. No need, it would never enter his body. He would never be in the same room with Tren. No need for that. Like I said, on his bulk, we were probably doing 250 to 300 milligrams of testosterone, given that it was his first cycle ever. So I would basically probably just take that same testosterone dose and maybe switch over to a test propionate and do just daily injections. Now it's likely bro science that there's differences between cypionate and enanthate and propionate and the water retention, but whatever, we're going to be doing daily injections. Bodybuilders get shit right all the time, even though there's no science to back it up. Bodybuilders do things appropriately, they get the job done, they look the leanest and the most jacked ever. So let's take some bro science and switch over to a propionate ester and do daily injections. Now on top of there, we're going to add in maybe around an equal amount of primobolan, so around 200 milligrams of primobolan. I would honestly just try to do that daily as well. Usually primo comes in like 100 milligrams per milliliter, so if you want to do 200 milligrams, you need to do 2 milliliters or 2 cc's a week, which is a significant amount of volume, so it just helps to break it up. I would just put that in the same syringe with the testosterone. I would do daily injections, kind of micro injections. You could even do them subcutaneously if you wanted, but honestly, I would prefer to probably put them in the delts. If he does get a little bit of inflammation in the delts, they'll look capped, they'll look more jacked, he'll look bigger when he's dieting down, and I would like that personally. Just so long as you don't have any like massive oil pockets like we see. But people aren't going to have the eye that bodybuilders do when they're looking at bodybuilders on the stage and looking at messed up shots. So they won't see that kind of stuff. All they'll see is big, swollen, puffy delts. And again, since this is a cutting phase, and let's just say he was like, I really need to get this deadline. I need to be fucking bone dry. I do think he could just do that through diet and cardio alone and get that way on like test and primo. I could see him even getting that way natural or just on testosterone. But we're just being hypothetical here and just throwing the kitchen sink at him because he's paying us millions of dollars and he needs to get on this show looking shredded. So we'd add in a little bit of oral Winstrol, maybe like 25 milligrams. Winstrol is definitely known as a hardening, drying compound, and it will definitely make you look significantly leaner given, again, that you're in the caloric deficit. I cannot stress enough the importance of proper training and proper nutrition always. None of these drugs will work without those. So if you give Winstrol to a guy who's in a bulk, he's not going to get shredded and lean. He'll just continue to get fat and bigger. So it's really going to be context specific for how these drugs work. But in a cut, we know that Winstrol will definitely help to accelerate fatty acid oxidation and just make those muscles look harder and fuller. The biggest downside of Winstrol is the lipid skewing. We'll go over a little bit of how we could negate that and some ancillary medications I would definitely add in. But if we want to get real controversial here, something that I probably wouldn't do for myself and I probably wouldn't even do for him, but what a lot of people may add in is something like cardarine. Now, cardarine is often kind of confused as a SARM, but it's not a SARM whatsoever. It's not a selective androgen receptor modulator. It has no impact on the androgen receptor. Works on something mainly called PPAR delta, and I think it does have a little bit of affinity for alpha and gamma as well. But the real beauty is coming through PPAR delta, and what it does there is help to increase fatty acid oxidation, insulin sensitivity, and it improves lipids, specifically high density lipoprotein. It will increase that, has a slight lowering effect on LDL or low density lipoprotein. So this could potentially offset the lipid skewing that the Winstrol is doing, but it would definitely help to oxidize more body fat. It basically works as like an exercise mimetic without the individual having to exercise. It'll essentially, for lack of better terms, ramp up that metabolism and fat burning capacity even at rest. So the individual is burning through more fatty acids acids while he's resting, while also improving insulin sensitivity and endurance. Now, at the outset, I said I would never use this and I wouldn't give it to him. Why is that? Well, it's because it's been shown to cause cancer. And as soon as you say that, there's going to be 5 people texting, oh, the doses that they gave the rats were so much higher than they would ever give humans. That's a shit study. Well, okay, I'll give you that. It was a lot higher doses than humans would ever consume. However, it was standard dosing protocol for drug trials, meaning that every drug that's ever come out before cardarine and after cardarine goes through a very similar dosing protocol. We give mice certain doses, some extremely high, some very low, and we see what the response is. Now, if you know how to read literature and drug trials, you can see that all the doses that they gave the mice caused tumors to some extent. And now the cartoon zealots will be like, well, those are mice, those aren't humans. Okay, I give you that too. We can't always extrapolate rodent data and say that it's applicable to humans. We're two different creatures. I will give you that. However, I'm personally not going to risk it anymore. And I say again because I've run a shit ton of cardarine in my day. Back when I used to do CrossFit, I really liked it for the increased cardiovascular capacity, and also I just liked looking shreddy around, so I used a ton of cardarine. And I was one of those people that were like, oh, it was too high of a dose and they were rats, blah, blah. But now looking back, when I actually understand science a little bit better, I think I was pretty fucking stupid, and I probably have some tumors growing in me now. I'm kidding, I hope I don't have any tumors. Please, I hope I don't have any fucking tumors, but I would never run it anymore. I'm done with that. I don't think I need it. I could achieve the exact same results just by putting in a little bit more work into my training and just not eating much. I still have abs year round. Hardly train anymore and don't do any gear. I don't need cardarine. Okay, what else? Because again, we're making him this elaborate, exotic celebrity Hollywood cycle. I think the one other thing that I may potentially add in would be clenbuterol, aka Clen. Now, most people have heard of Clen. It's essentially a beta-2 agonist. It means that it works on beta-2 receptors, which are mainly in the lungs that help to bronchodilate, or means to open up the bronchioles so that somebody can breathe more. It's a medication for things like asthma. You know, we have albuterol here in the US, and in other countries they have clenbuterol, but taking it high enough levels, it can work on other areas like increasing fatty acid oxidation. Clen is tried and true to increase kind of basal metabolic rate, so that at baseline you're burning a few more calories than you would otherwise. And when you take it, you could feel this at work. You'll literally be like shaking if you take too much, which is why I would start him low. I usually start this at like 10 micrograms, which is lower than the low dose that most people recommend, but I don't like feeling like shit. First time I took this, I was in undergrad and I was working at a winery, and I had to serve wine to rich, snooty people, and I took Clen that day at like 40 micrograms because I was just fucking stupid. All day long, I was just like sweating, like cold sweats, like you have a fever, feeling awful. And I was shaking, and I was trying to pour wine and carry wine around to, again, these rich, snooty people, and they thought I was a fucking tweaker. I felt awful. And ever since then, whenever I would run it, I start extremely low until I don't feel any bit of symptoms anymore. Like I don't feel like I'm shaking, I can't feel my heart. Then I slowly titrated up 5 to 10 micrograms. I personally don't think you need to feel it in order for it to be working. I don't want to feel that. I feel awful. You ever drank like too much coffee, too much caffeine, and you feel so stimulated that you feel tired and you feel like shit? And that's what Clen is like, but times 10 or 100. So I would add in Clen for him probably, and honestly, like even if he was natty, just like a little bit of Clen probably would have gotten the job done, given his baseline that we talked about, him being pretty muscular. Probably could have just given him a little bit of Clen to speed up his cutting process. But again, we're doing some elaborate, exotic Hollywood cycle here. Now next, this is the most important part and the part that I have the biggest passion for. Let's keep the dude healthy while he's doing these cycles. Now again, I alluded to Winstrol and how it can skew lipids, but all hormones seem to have it. Even testosterone at testosterone replacement doses will have some lipid skewing potential. We often see HDL suppressed to some extent and LDL increased to some extent. We don't want that. So what I almost always do would be to add in a baseline of ezetimibe. Ezetimibe is a super mild cholesterol lowering medication. It can lower LDL-C and ApoB by around 16 to 20%, which is pretty significant, especially in a healthy guy like him. He'll probably be in a pretty healthy state already, and this will just help to lower that around 20%, which even the testosterone alone could potentially bump it up. So the way that ezetimibe works is pretty cool. Quick biochemistry lesson. Our liver produces a lot of cholesterol daily, and it dumps it into our gut where it mixes with bile, and then it goes into our intestine where it's reabsorbed into the liver and used for various functions. Where ezetimibe works surface is in the intestine, and it blocks that reabsorption of cholesterol through the intestine into the liver. It blocks a receptor called Niemann-Pick C1-like-1 receptor, which always reminds me of some Star Wars droid. Now, when our liver senses that it's not getting the cholesterol back in from the intestine, it goes, what the hell? We need more cholesterol, so it increases its surface receptors, the surface LDL receptors. So it starts to grab more cholesterol from circulation, and it gets lowered that way. What's nice about that is we're not blocking the actual production of cholesterol via HMG-CoA reductase like a statin would do, which is associated with lower ubiquinol levels in the mitochondria and theorized to be the root cause of the muscle soreness that people get with statins. And when we're having somebody who wants to get like jacked and lifting and working out a lot, the last thing we want to do is give them muscle soreness. Now, that only occurs with around 5% of people on statins, but I wouldn't take that risk, especially if going in his lipids were good. Ezetimibe probably would take care of it. Now, it would also add a baseline of 4 grams of omega-3s, either like omega ethyl esters or even just a standard omega-3. I like Nordic Naturals. I'm not associated with them in any way. I mainly like them because other people have said that they're good. I have no way to back that up. What I like them for is that they flavor it with lemon, so I'm not burping up fish all day. Instead, I'm burping up lemon, and that's good enough for me. But if I were Jeremy Allen White and had a shit ton of money, I would just get pharmaceutical Vascepa and take the omega ethyl ester form, so I didn't have to worry about mercury or oxidation or anything like that. Next, probably the most important thing that we're gonna have to worry about here is blood pressure. Blood pressure is the bane of all steroid users' existence. Most of the issues that steroids cause revolve around blood pressure, minus the lipids, which we've already taken care of, but blood pressure is a killer of most bodybuilders. Why? Well, for multiple reasons. One is that it puts a lot of strain on the arteries and the vascular system, and it messes up the lining of the arteries called the endothelium, which is a small single cell layer, and it doesn't take much to mess that up. So when we have high blood pressure, we blast through those arteries, we mess up that small single cell layer called the endothelium, which leads to then that cholesterol being able to attach itself and put cholesterol in underneath the endothelium in the subendothelial layer, and that starts the cascade of plaque buildup or atherosclerosis. Next is it really screws up our kidneys. When the blood leaves the heart, it goes out of the aorta. The first organ that it hits is the kidneys. The kidneys are pretty small, and the blood goes from a big diameter vessel of the aorta right into the renal arteries, which are really small, and the pressure amplifies even more, and it basically just blows out or washes out the kidneys, if you will. It really messes them up, leading to scar tissue and inflammation and a whole other cascade, which eventually could lead to kidney failure. And without our kidneys, we cannot live. They're probably one of the most, if not the most important organ that we have for function. You can't live without kidneys. If we took out kidneys, you're gonna die. So we really need those things. Let's not let blood pressure blow them out. High blood pressure can also lead to like cerebrovascular disease and a host of other conditions we don't need to get into. You should just know that high blood pressure equals bad, and steroids usually equal high blood pressure, so let's do something about that. My drug of choice for keeping blood pressure at bay would be 20 milligrams of telmisartan to start. That's a pretty low dose. It can go up to 80 milligrams, so we're just going to give a quarter of a dose here. 20 milligrams of telmisartan would help to keep that blood pressure down via working on the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. Telmisartan is known as an angiotensin II receptor blocker, so what it does is block the angiotensin II receptor, which downstream leads to less sodium being held onto, and therefore less water, and therefore less pressure. It's a little bit more complex than that, but you get the gist. Cool thing about telmisartan is it also works on that PPAR like we talked about previously with cardarine. There's even some people who say that just take telmisartan because it works on PPAR instead of taking cardarine and risking cancer, because telmisartan's never been linked with cancer. Now, you could say that maybe, but cardarine's way more potent on those PPAR receptors than telmisartan, but I fall into that camp too, where I'm like, hey, I'd rather get a little activation of PPAR and no cancer rather than a lot of activation of PPAR and some cancer. But to each their own. Anyways, through that mechanism, you could see telmisartan leading to increased endurance, increased insulin sensitivity, decreased body fat, improved lipids, and it also can work on the red blood cell count, which will definitely elevate when we're taking things like testosterone, primo, winstrol, like we talked about, because it can cause anemia in some, and a bodybuilder may just keep your hematocrit and hemoglobin at bay. Now, last time I made a video like this, Greg Doucette came out and said, I'm killing people with polypharmacy, and I hope he does again, because that got me a lot of views and a lot of subs. Thanks, Greg. But anyways, I don't think that Jeremy Allen White needs this whatsoever. This was hypothetical. If this dude came to me and said, I want steroids, and here's, I don't know, 50 grand to give me the best steroid cycle that will get me to my goal ASAP, This is what I may give him hypothetically. I would never do this because I'm not his doctor, and no doctors whatsoever would ever prescribe steroids for performance enhancing. But anyways, Greg, you can definitely make a video about me if you want. I would be ever grateful. But again, I don't think that Jeremy actually needed any bit of anabolics whatsoever. This was 100% hypothetical, and I would actually try to urge him to just do it naturally, because naturally he has a pretty damn good physique here. I don't think he needs to touch a thing. I think we just need proper training, a good caloric deficit, maybe a little bit of clenbuterol, maybe, and he would probably be movie ready relatively quickly. But if you want to see what I think other celebrities took for other movie roles, well, watch this video here and give me a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.